Hey, if I haven't had a chance to meet, my name is Paul Hurckman, and there are many people that we haven't had a chance to meet because there are so many new people coming to Substance, and I'm so thankful for that. I get the honor of being part of the teaching team. My family and I, we attend downtown, and shout out to downtown and all of our campuses, West Side and Monterey. And then I also get to work with one of our missional organizations that Substance partners with. We feed refugees and we rescue girls, and last year alone, we planted over 8,000 churches in unreached areas. And so I never want to miss an opportunity to say thank you. If you've given at any point, especially through Heart for the House, you are part of incredible things happening. I think this season is important. This season where we are, as a church, we're getting ready to launch our Southside campus. And I'm so appreciative of Pastor Peter and Carolyn. And in my head, I go, slow down, Paul, so it's not just an intro, so that we understand, I think, the courage of our leaders. I'm so appreciative of leaders that can have big dreams and big vision and the courage to step into it, but also humility and wisdom. I see them gathering information, I see them seeking counsel, I see them praying, and I see them leading, and I'm so excited not only for our Southside campus, but for all the campuses and future campuses and what God has in store. It's also a season that is special because we are in the season of Lent. And now Lent is a period of 40 days leading up to Easter. It's something that's celebrated across time and space. It was actually all the way back to the apostolic age. They were celebrating Lent, and then in around 82,000 in the Council of Nicaea, they cemented it. And I'm hearing myself talk, and you're like, I didn't show up for a Bible class this morning. But throughout time, Christians have chosen to take these 40 days, and it kind of mimics Jesus' 40 days in the desert, where he was praying and fasting in preparation for his purpose, for what he was going to do for those 3 years of public ministry. And in the same way, Easter and Lent is our moment to go, hey, I'm going to prepare my heart to more fully embrace and understand God's ultimate purpose and then his invitation for us. Because he is inviting us not just to receive what he did, but also to participate in what he's doing for other people. And so as I think about this Lent season, I've got two pictures in my head. I got fish sandwiches, and I've got a mountain. We'll start with the fish sandwich, okay? So here's the deal about the fish sandwich. In 1962, there was a man named Lou in Ohio, and Lou ran a restaurant, and he was noticing every Lent season, specifically on Fridays, his sales would go way down. Nobody was eating meat. And one of the traditions in Lent is that people give up meat on Fridays. And he's like, man, this is affecting my bottom line. So he came up with a fish sandwich. And that fish sandwich, because Lou owned a McDonald's, became the Filet-O-Fish. And the Filet-O-Fish now sells over 300 million sandwiches every single year, a quarter of them just in these 40 days. And so if you happen to like the taste of cardboard between two pieces of bread, let this be your spiritual invitation to be one of the 1.8 million fish fillet sandwiches that will be sold today. The mountain. So I was standing on top of the tallest freestanding mountain in the world when I had a moment that would really change my life. And it was a moment that I keep thinking about in these 40 days because it created a dotted line to this conversation that we're having in this season that we are in. But to give you context of what happened on this mountain, I've got to go back about 10 years. So 10 years earlier, I was working at a university. I was a resident director and I was a professor. And there was these 3 students that heard a missionary that came, this couple came, and they were talking about a need of an impoverished community in South America. And they were pouring their heart out about their love for this community, and they wanted to be obedient, and they wanted to share the hope of Christ, and to give them food, and to help this community thrive. These 3 students were so moved that they wanted to do something. A lot of us hear stories and we're like, man, that really moves me, but they wanted to go past just feeling deeply to doing something. So they decided they were going to bike across the country, tell everybody about this community, and raise money. Now, because I was one of those students, residents, directors, they came to me and they were like, hey, we are seeking spiritual counsel or advice. And I looked in the mirror and I was like, you came to the right place. And so they were like, hey, we're thinking about biking across the country. And I did what you're supposed to do. I asked questions, didn't give advice. And I said, hey, have you planned a route? No. Okay, do you know how long it's going to take? No. Do you know about how many miles a day you're going to have to ride? No. Have you ever ridden a bike more than 20 miles? No. Are y'all at least cyclists? No. Do you even own a bike? No. And then they turned the table and they said to me, would you like to go? And I said, no. And here's the reason. Actually, there was something inside of me that wanted to do this epic thing. It was epic, and it was for impoverished people, and it was coming out of their spiritual journey. I wanted to do it, but there was also conventional wisdom. There was wisdom that said, these three are folios. That's the Latin version. They don't know what they're doing. They've got this young excitement, but they don't know, and you have a job, and you're stable, and you're wise, and stick with your plan. And yet, 3 months later, these three dudes were on a bike, and they biked 3,300 miles, and they raised $18,000, and that impacted that community. And I was left wondering why I said no. I would say on my best days, I felt regret. On my worst days, I felt shame. I kind of felt like God was going, hey, I gave you your moment. Now you're relegated to being just average. You could have been great. You could have been in these spandex. You could have been, these guys are doing great things. This guy's now a full-time missionary. This guy flips houses. This guy's the most spiritual. He owns a Chick-fil-A. This is a future that God has for y'all. And I was left just going, man, what is going on? And over the next couple of years, I started, instead of feeling bad for myself, I started going, maybe God's not mad at me. Maybe he's trying to show me. Maybe he's trying to invite me. Maybe there's a different way to live. Maybe it's not always status quo. Maybe there's something more that my heart intuitively knows. And if you're listening in this room or at our campuses or anywhere this morning, maybe your heart intuitively knows that there's more. Maybe you're wrestling with things with your vocation or your finance or your family. And maybe this morning, God's beautiful, good word has something to say to you. And so I just kept paying attention. And it was 10 years later that I got invited. They called me and they said, hey, would you like to lead a trip? And I'm like, is this a trick question? Because I got it wrong last time. Of course I'll lead a trip. So my wife and I, we had an opportunity to lead a team of people to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, the tallest freestanding mountain in the world, over 19,000 feet. But we were doing it because we were raising money for impoverished girls living in the medical slums of Nairobi, Kenya. We just wanted to give them the opportunity to have an education and to be reminded of who God created them to be, powerful young women that can change their community. And so my wife and I, with these 10 people, it was, I think, 7 or 8 days, but it's the last day when you summit the mountain that was the hardest, because they have this great idea that you're going to climb all night so that you get to the peak when the sun rises, unless you're as slow as I am and you totally miss that. You're as sick as you have ever been, and by the time you get to the top, it's completely sunny out, and you're saying, take the picture, but this is not a smile. This is not accomplishment. I had this idea that I would shoot a video and be like, hey, Substance, we're planting a campus and you should be a part. And all I could actually think is, take the expletive picture. I need to get off this mountain. Very spiritual. As I was descending the mountain, there was a verse that came to me. Now, I don't think because of mountain altitude sickness, I could have even given you the book or the chapter or the verse. We'll leave that to smarter people than I am, but I would soon come to find out that it was Isaiah 58. And it started to permeate in different places in my soul than it had before. In Isaiah 58, 10 and 11, the message says, if you are generous with the hungry, and you start giving yourself to the down and out, your lives will begin to glow in the darkness, and your shadowed lives will be bathed in sunlight. And I will always show you where to go, and I will give you a full life in the emptiest of places, firm muscles and strong bones. That's not just a CrossFit verse. This is a verse, you know. I mean, they're all important in here, but this one's a verse. Man, if you're generous with the hungry and you give yourselves, one of the versions, give yourself fully to the down and out, this is the trade out that you're going to get. I'm going to always show you where to go. Always. You're going to have the direction. You're going to have a full life, even in the emptiest of places, firm muscles and strong bones. This is the promise. This is the great if-then statement that started churning inside of me. And something woke up because this giving yourself fully, on top of that mountain, I was as sick as I'd ever been. I was wasted. I was tired. I was exhausted. And yet, I knew the purpose was because we were trying to help these impoverished girls. And about 4 days later, I would be in Nairobi, Kenya, and I would see these young girls' faces and fall in love with the fact that the Imago Dei, the image of God, was over every individual, and they just wanted a chance to thrive. And somehow, through this verse, my future was wrapped up in their future. And the words of Isaiah reminding me in this moment and us right now that we are wrapped up in this, and this great if-then statement. If you give yourself fully, what your soul really wants is found on the other side of that. Whether you are incredibly spiritual or you're far more like Paris, it doesn't matter. This is for all of us. And so my wife and I, as we descended the mountain, went to Nairobi, and then went back to our jobs, we decided that we were going to give ourselves more fully and step in, and we ended up quitting our jobs and selling our house and moving across the country and joining a movement of people that were asking the questions that Christ followers have asked throughout time and space. What is my role in the kingdom? What does it look like for me in this space, in this moment, right now, to give myself fully? And over the years, I've come back to what I would call this revolutionary text. This text by the prophet and poet Isaiah that's reminding a group of people, these Israelites who were God's chosen people. If you go all the way back to Genesis in the creation narrative, God has a perfect plan where we all get to thrive. And then a couple of pages later, there's brokenness, broken people, broken relationship, broken communities. And the rest of the book, all of it, is a good God inviting us back into a good design. And Isaiah is reminding these Israelites, God chose them to be like, I want you to live differently. We have to show this new thing. It's kind of like show and tell. And the Israelites keep forgetting, hey, when it's tough, they're all about God. They're all about Yahweh. But when it's easy, they let the culture infiltrate how they're living. And throughout Isaiah, they're so in love with their stuff. In Isaiah, it's idolatry, but they're so in love with their stuff at the expense of them being able to love other people. And Isaiah keeps reminding, saying, wait, reminder, you're supposed to live different, and on the other side of that is everything that you want. And so let's look at a chunk from Isaiah 58, verse 6, all the way to verse 12. If we start out with verse 6, he's talking about this fast. And he says this is the kind of fast that I'm after. To break the chains of injustice, to get rid of exploitation in the workplace, to free the oppressed, to cancel debts. What I'm interested in seeing you do is sharing your food with the hungry, inviting the homeless poor into your homes, putting clothes on the shivering ill-clad, being available to your own families. Do this, and the lights will turn on, and your lives will turn around at once. So he's talking about this idea of fasting. And fasting, if you're new to the game, fasting is this idea where we give up something to prepare room for something else. Earlier this year and every year, we focus on fasting at the beginning of the year, and that is an invitation for people to go, hey, make some space to hear from God, to grow spiritually, to have this year be a year where you grow. Well, in this text, and oftentimes when we see fasting, it's not just only spiritual growth, but it's also literally, physically giving up food so that other people can have food. They were in an agrarian society and food was everything. You either were wealthy and you had food, or you didn't have food and you died. And you might say, well, that's hard for us to understand because we have access to food. And yet, in our country, 11% of people are living at poverty or extreme poverty. And at the same time, it's estimated that 30 to 40% of all food is thrown out in America, just thrown out. So there is this inconsistency between people who need things and people who have things. And this part, Isaiah is saying, hey, the fast that you're doing so that you align with Yahweh, this good God, it's also for other people. So don't just plan on moving close to God. It's an invitation to move close to people. This is the design. This is the design. It's never one or the other. It's both and. And it's this idea that what we have, it's not all ours. Some of it is for his beautiful plan to redeem all people. In the same way that he is inviting you to a redemptive relationship, he then wants to invite you to be a part of his plan around the world, or in your city, or in this room, or in your home. That we get to participate with our time, or with our money, or with our stuff, or with our influence, or with our hope. You know, there are people without hope, and if you have hope, that is one of the greatest things that you can give. You can say, I'm going to give account for the hope that I have, and it's in Jesus. And so here's what it's saying. It's saying, this is what I want you to do. And this language, trust me, I get it. I see some of you, and I'm prophetically seeing some of you that are not in this space. You're seeing the long-haired guy that works in an organization that feeds the refugee, and you're like, that's just for you. No. This is for everybody. This is language that we see over and over, and this is why I know it's so important, because there's these repeats. In Isaiah 61, later he says, the Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he's anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He set me to proclaim the freedom for the prisoner, recovery of sight to the blind, to set the oppressed free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. This is good stuff. This is powerful stuff. And you feel like, I think I've heard that before. You have, either because you read Scripture or because you watch The Chosen. In episode, it's all right, it's all spiritual, all right? In season 3, episode 3 is this moment where Jesus chooses, it's his coming out party. In the same way, we're about to roll into South Metro and tell them what substance is all about. In this moment, Jesus is rolling in saying, this is what I'm all about. He's on the tail end of his 40 days of fasting, which is what we do with Lent. These 40 days, and he's like, here's what I'm about. And Jesus comes into the synagogue, and this is what happens. He says, he went to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And on the Sabbath day, he went into the synagogue, as was his custom, and he stood up and he read. And the scroll of the prophet Isaiah, see what's happening here? The scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. Unrolling it, he found the place where it is written, the Spirit of the Lord is on me. And I'm going to pause for a second. This is such dense and beautiful language. Holy Spirit, would you help us receive it the way the Israelites received it, the way the people in that synagogue received it, and would you allow us to receive it new and fresh for our families and our neighborhoods in this moment as this church right now. The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he's anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He sent me to proclaim freedom to the prisoner and recovery of sight to the blind, to set the oppressed free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Then he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. And the eyes of everyone in the synagogue were fastened on him. And he began by saying to them, today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing. It's everything I can do to not say it, so I'm just going to say it. That's the mic drop. I don't even like that phrase. I feel bad when people drop mics. It sounds bad. But this is, people like, what? He's like, this is his walk-up song. This is the door knocker that you put that says this is what our church is about. This is what's on the front side of his website, both mobile and on your desktop. This is everything that he's saying. This is what the unruly rabbi on the side of the mountain said is important for you to know. That was about his business. Seeing everybody, seeing the value in everybody. offering physical things and offering spiritual hope. And then he invites us. He invites us to be a part of it. He says, hey, what you have, could you use that for other people? I was in Indianapolis last weekend, and when I travel, I like to Yelp or just kind of Google hole-in-the-wall restaurants. And so I came upon this one called Hungry Man and Friends Bar and Burger Joint. I was there for the burger joint, don't worry. But I rolled in, and it was super packed. There was only one spot. It was at the bar. So I go sit up at the bar, and this lady comes to me, and she's been working there 27 years. She goes, you look new. I'm like, wow, I don't have an Indianapolis vibe. She's like, we only take cash. And I start doing one of these because I don't know if I have cash. And the dude next to me, nursing the biggest vat of Budweiser I have ever seen, looks at me and goes, if you don't got it, I got you. And that's Isaiah. That's your spiritual moment. If you don't got it, I got you. You know why? Because this is what Jesus did. As we prepare and head into Easter, the culmination of his purpose, that he gave up his life for us, because we didn't have it, he had us, and then he invites us to see other people and to just be like, if you don't got it, I got you. If you don't got hope, come to my church. If you've got questions and you don't have community, come to my small group. If you don't have a few bucks, I got you. This is the beautiful message, not only of Lent and Easter, but the gospel. If you don't got it, I got you. And so then we go, this is God's plan. This is what he said, not what I said. And then we go back and he says, if you get rid of your unfair practices and you quit blaming victims, you quit gossiping about other people's sins, if you quit posting on, never mind, if you are generous with the hungry and you start giving yourself to the down and out, your lives will begin to glow in the darkness and your shadowed lives will be bathed in sunlight. And I'm always going to show you where to go. We're all looking for how to get there, right? We are looking for his best plan for our life. I will always show you where to go. You'll live a full life in the emptiest of places, firm muscles, strong bones. You'll be like a well-watered garden, a gurgling spring that never runs dry. This is poetry. He's saying, man, if you give yourself, I'm going to show you where to go. You're going to be strong. And then this whole gurgling thing, that's back to the origin story in Genesis. It's back to the garden where everybody was thriving. He's saying you're going to thrive and you're going to be a part of other people's thriving if we give ourselves fully. And one of the things that I like about giving ourselves fully is it's relative to where we're at. It doesn't say if you give $10,000. It doesn't say if you join the parking team. It doesn't say if you lead a small group. It's like if you answer the question of what fully means to you. Because I'm a parent. I got 5 kids. Fully meant something different when I had 2 kids. All right, I had a little bit more time, a little bit more space, a little bit more energy. Now I have a little bit more money now. My kids spend most of it. But the bottom line is in different seasons of our lives, fully means something different. Some of y'all, business has been good, fully means something different to you. Some of y'all got 5 kids acting a fool, fully means something different to you. Scripture sees you right where you're at. God's kingdom sees you where you're at and is just asking you to answer the question of what it means to give fully. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's not an easy word. It's a hopeful word, but it's not easy, but it's not impossible either. And that's what I love about this. Fully fits right where you're at. It fits with your family and your finances and your medical. It fits with your spiritual journey. It fits with what's going on in your heart. Fully fits. It's not easy, but it's not impossible. And then he goes on. It says, you'll be like a well-watered garden. Our invitation is to help people understand that there's a good God with a good design where everybody can thrive. One of the things I love about working with our international partners is that they challenge me. So we work in war-torn areas. One of the countries is the longest ongoing civil war. We do refugee meals there and plant churches there. And over the last 2 years, we've had 4 people that were killed for sharing the gospel. And so we have to ask these questions about the feeding program, like should we suspend the feeding program because we don't want to put our partners in harm's way. And so we went and asked our partners, hey, we're thinking about suspending the feeding program because it's so dangerous. And I keep a copy of this in my Bible. It's an email that I got back a couple of years ago. Cuckoo is her name, and she said, I will not run away from Yangon. I will never leave my people in trouble for the safety of me and my family. No matter how difficult it is, I will always be in Yangon for my people. It's my calling from God. It's my commitment to help my people as much as I can. Shouldn't we help more when people are in trouble? I'm so encouraged. You know, it's that moment where you can either feel ashamed, like, oh, I don't do enough, or you can be encouraged that, oh, because I read something like this and the tendency is for me to go, oh, they're so exemplary. No, they're not supposed to be exemplary. They're supposed to be the example. They're not supposed to be inspirational. They're supposed to be aspirational, a picture of who we all are invited to be, helping those in need, physically and spiritually, seeing people the way God sees them while we are in process, participating and offering hope to other people, which then brings us to the last verse. And it's verse 12. It's my favorite. You'll use the old rubble of past lives to rebuild anew. Rebuild the foundations out of your past. You'll be known as those who can fix anything, restore old ruins, rebuild and renovate, and make the community livable again. Every time I read this verse, I think of substance. It is my heart to align and be a part of a community of Christ followers that understand that he's going to take my ruins, he's going to rebuild the foundations of my past, and then I get to be a part of people who will be known as fixing anything. We get to be a part of rebuilding marriages. We get to be a part of restoring families. We get to be a part of reconciling races. We get to be a part of seeing our neighbor and bringing the hope of the gospel. This is not just for an individual. This is for us as a community, that this is a prophetic word, that we, substance, will be known as those who can fix anything, restore old ruins, rebuild and renovate, make the community livable again. In the South Side, downtown, Northtown, Monterey, every other place where our folks' feet touch, we get to be people that are known as those who can fix anything, not because we are awesome, but because we are in process of our foundation being rebuilt, and together we can help other folk. And it goes back to this great if-then statement: if we give ourselves fully. Earlier this year, I had the opportunity, I believe in January, to share, and I talked about obstacles and opportunities at the beginning of the year, and was talking about the Greek way that the Greeks looked at time, and they looked at it in Chronos and Kairos. And Chronos is just the disciplined rhythm of what we do every day. And Kairos is then what happens when we live disciplined lives, that, wow, we have these great opportunities. And about a month ago, I was given a great opportunity. And this next year in November, I'm going to be doing something called the Great World Race. Now, y'all know I don't like to run, so this is a little bit confusing, but the Great World Race is literally 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. First of all, cheat notes, you should wow Isaiah a little bit more and less the long-haired dude running. Cheat notes. Who doesn't want to start running a marathon in Antarctica? And then that night fly to Australia, and then fly to Abu Dhabi, and then fly to Portugal, and then fly to Cartagena, and then Miami. Who doesn't want to start right there? Our team, our small team, we're going to try to raise over the course of this year $1 million. But the point is not, don't worry, you don't have to sign up to run, you don't have to walk, you don't have to in solidarity sweat with me, you don't even have to feel passionate about helping girls get rescued from trafficking, although I'm sure that you are. This morning, this moment is about Isaiah, for us to ask, what does it look like for us individually and as a community to give ourselves fully? For me, why I love this is because I think back to when I had the opportunity to bike across the country and I said no. And I was filled with regret. I'm like, I'm not that person. I'm going to take a more conventional path. I'm going to do what is respectful and easy and nice, and that the broader constituent would applaud my wisdom. But in it, I was like, no, I don't think I'm supposed to just appease the broader constituent. There's something inside of us inviting us to give our lives more fully. And because God, in the way that he wired me, not you, keeps inviting me to this kind of thing, this is something my whole family is committed to. I mean, it's the money we're going to raise, it's the time, it's all of this. This is what it looks like for the Hurckmans. But what does it look like for you in this Lent season? What does it look like for you to see other people and say, if you don't got it, I got you. You don't got a church, I got you. You don't got a small group, I got you. You don't got some money, I got you. You don't got hope, I got you. You don't got a friend, come to my house and have a cup of coffee. What does that look like? And one of the reasons why I love being at Substance is this is an expression of Isaiah. Every time we are here, when we gather together, the opportunities that we have, every time you invest in a kid's serving in the nursery, shout out to all the nursery workers. Every time you put the cones, it's great when you put the cones out in June and it's nice. How about this morning when it is so cold? Every time that you invest in missions, every time you prayerfully consider which campus to go to or on a Saturday night if you're going to go, every single time we are participating in an expression of what it means for us to continue to step in and give ourselves more fully. And so if you are looking for a way to respond that is just shy of 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents, join the parking team. It's like almost equal, okay? And join a team, step in. And I say this not because I'm just trying to be the chief recruiter. I say this because our mutual job is to break the bread of life and to consider what it means for us. What does Isaiah 58 mean? If you are looking for clarity vocationally or for your family or finances, if you're looking for a medical breakthrough, if you are looking simply for your life to have deeper meaning, then we go to Isaiah and it says here's your promise. All of it starts with you considering and meditating on what does it mean to give our lives fully. My prayer for you is that you would hear the same whisper that I heard, a God who's not mad at us, who is inviting us into the best version of who we are individually and as a church. My prayer is that you would have a sense of hope, that even if there were things in the past that you regret saying no to or saying yes to, that you would know your story is not done, but that he is continuing to invite you into a full life with strong muscles, strong bones, flourishing. We are a gurgling garden. And maybe as you leave, and you drive home, and inevitably you go by those golden arches, and you seek wisdom on if you should have a fillet of fish or not, that more importantly, you would consider the words in Isaiah repeated by Jesus that says, here's what I'm inviting you to see those in need and move towards them, because you are part of my plan, and what you have can be used for his kingdom come and his will to be done. Amen. Our campus pastors will come on up and tell us where we're going next. Love you, Substance.